The way to build a better hippocampus is by just taking this. In a mouse study, it was shown to increase hippocampus size by 20 to 30% after 4 weeks when the mice have been damaged by radiation-induced cognitive dysfunction, which is crazy. And some of the mice were shown to perform better post-treatment compared to pre-treatment. So what is this? This is NSI 189 Alto 100, which is in a few clinical trials at the moment, has been studied in the past for MDD. This is a hippocampal neurogenesis stimulant, and it's pretty selective for this. And so this result was in a mice study, except does this transfer to human beings, where it's kind of disputed, but we share around 87% of our genes with mice. So the effect is kind of debatable. But in some of these clinical trials, it was shown to increase hippocampal size by 1 to 2%, which was not deemed clinically significant, but I beg to disagree, because 1 to 2% of an increase in hippocampal size is the equivalent of doing a year of cardiovascular exercise 3 times a week if you are the elderly, which is what this study shows. And that 1 to 2% increase is enough to stave off cognitive decline for 1 to 2 years. Yet NSI 189 does this in just 28 days. Do I got your attention yet? A smaller hippocampus size increases your risk of cognitive impairment, depression, anxiety, as well as a whole host of other disorders. Most mood disorders are poor hippocampal function masquerading as X or Y or Z, where the hippocampus is really the key. And even so, most antidepressants, whether you argue if they work or not, they're speculated to work through this pathway, through increasing neurogenesis through the hippocampus, as it is very key for plasticity, for memory, and for mood. One of my favorite things about this compound is in the phase 2 clinical trials, some of the side effects were an increased executive function, better memory, better working memory ability, which are all very much tied to intelligence and cognitive function. But as a side effect, with memory being improved by 37%, working memory by 29%, and overall executive function by 24% based on the probability scores within the study, which is crazy. Please show me a compound that increases working memory by 29%. I'm waiting. Additional studies in animal models shows that it can be beneficial to diabetic rats for improving mitochondrial function, for increasing recovery after stroke, for even reversing Angelman syndrome, which is crazy, which essentially is a chromosomal deletion resulting in an intellectual disability, for the ability to restore long-term memory in Alzheimer's and improve executive function and learning in mice. An interesting connection for this with NSI 189 is improving hippocampal function will improve your executive function and your motivation, as the hippocampus projects into the mesolimbic pathway, which essentially is a reward system consisting of the nucleus accumbens, things like that. So it reinforces the reward that you get from doing things. So it's a good antidote to anhedonia as well, because it can increase your interest in things, improve your motivation overall. And that's what a lot of people notice with NSI 189. And the company that developed it put forward that it could be used for cognitive issues such as cognitive decline, for improving memory after stroke, for traumatic brain injury, Alzheimer's disease, for PTSD. And when they did the original research on it, they scanned over 52 neurotransmitter channels, looked at almost 900 kinases, looked at a bunch of different other receptor sites within the body to find what does NSI 189 affect, what does it interact with, and they found it affected none of them, where it's super selective for the hippocampus by increasing different growth factors such as GDNF, BDNF, SCF, VEGF, all those different growth factors. And so what does it feel like? That really brings the question, what is the experience typically, where it's very much a dose dependent experience in my experience, pun intended. In studies in humans, most of the time they use 40 milligrams, sometimes 80 milligrams. So that could be a good benchmark, where 40 milligrams is probably a good place for most people to stick with. So I am usually a little bit lower, so I experimented with 25, 10 milligrams. For this, it is effective, but that cannot necessarily be a good thing. Where increasing neurogenesis a lot of the time, if it is excessive for you, can increase brain fog. And so that's what I find with NSI 189, where if I do a cycle of it, I'll feel worse on it, but then I'll feel better afterwards. So what I do is I just take it before bed. It does have around an 18, 19 hour half-life, so keep that in mind. Except for me, I find if I take like smaller doses, or around like 5 to 10 milligrams before bed, that results in me not waking up too foggy, and the improvements sustain themselves over time as usually neurogenesis takes time for it to happen most of the time. So that could be a good strategy, except for most people, if you're not as sensitive as me, 40 milligrams is a really good starting point. The phosphate or the free base form, it really kind of depends on you. Most of the studies use the phosphate form, so if that makes you feel more comfortable using that specific version, please do so. I noticed that I'm just super happy on it. Like, it is a happiness maxer, where I've taken it during the dead of winter, which is kind of shitty. It's not super fun to like just be around and kind of hibernate during that time. And you just kind of feel euphoric. You feel so good. You feel like nothing can upset your mood. So it does feel good in that way. That was when I took like 20-ish milligrams. For safety, I would say this is remarkably safe, as it's past phase 2 clinical trials, so it has to demonstrate excessive safety for it to do that, as well as it's currently being piloted for having other phase 3 trials and phase 2 trials for BBD, MDD, PTSD, things of that nature. So it would have to demonstrate good safety. And you can purchase it for literally just $27, which is crazy for something that can grow your hippocampus, improve its function, as the hippocampus can very much be one of the master keys to unlocking your cognition, your mood, safeguarding your brain for the future, improving performance now, all of that good stuff. I got mine from science.bio, so you can definitely get it from there. And if you want to find out the best way to improve your cognition, to speedrun cognitive enhancement, check out this video where I talk exactly about that, where the 6 compounds that you can take to really take you from 50 to 100 as quick as possible.